Welcome to those of you in the room and online. My name is Mark. I have the privilege of being the lead pastor here, a New Collective Church. And I'm in this series that I started just a few weeks ago that I'm calling Vibes, which is this. It's all about this, how to experience an emotionally healthy life with Jesus. How to experience an emotionally healthy life with Jesus. And this all came out of a burning desire for me when I look around at the world and I see the state of our emotional well-being, and it hasn't been a good one. And it also came from this desire for us to be able to see that Jesus cares about our emotions. That Jesus cares about every part and piece of us. And a part of me becoming emotionally healthy as a Jesus follower is me growing closer in my walk with Jesus. So let me briefly recap. If you're new to NCC or new to this series, there's a couple of things that I need to recap just to bring us up to speed, to set this foundation of where we're going today and all throughout this series. And one thought is this, is that emotions aren't bad, they're built in. Emotions aren't bad, they're built in. I know it's common sometimes in Christian circles to be like, feelings are kind of gross, right? Let's not talk about feelings. Feelings are bad. The only thing that can happen by paying attention to feelings or talking to feelings are bad things. Don't trust your feelings. Don't trust your sense of just you do you. And while I understand all of those things, we need to understand that emotions are not inherently bad, but rather they're built in. And here's the theological point behind all of that is this, is that God is emotional and we're created in the image of God. God is emotional and we are created in the image of God. All throughout the scriptures, we see different scenes where God displays emotion. We see different scenes while Jesus is walking amongst people on the earth where he displays a variety of emotions. And you and I were created in the image of God. So guess what? We have the capacity to be able to feel. We have the capacity to be able to feel emotions and display emotions. Emotions aren't bad, they're built in. Which brings me to this emotion today, which is the second of 8 primary emotions that I'm talking about in this series, and it's the emotion of sadness. It's the emotion of sadness. Sadness, the feeling of grief, self-pity, despair, dejection, loneliness, sadness. Every person at some point in time in their life will feel the emotion of sadness. And part of what I want to establish just in the early part of this today is that it had been something for so long in Christian churches for us to act like that is not the case. For that to seem as though that it was not okay, that Christian people, we don't ever get sad. We have all these Bible verses, rejoice in the Lord, always. Again, I say rejoice. Today is the day that the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad in it, right? That being a Christian is all about always being happy, clappy, full of joy, singing celebratory songs of praise to God. And I'm telling you, all of those things are good and they are great, but so many people have stepped into the church walls or joined an online stream and felt so much shame because they felt sad. As though that they were a leper and the world's worst sinner because they were feeling the emotion of sadness. And I just need to let us know before I go any further today that it is a lie from the devil, that it is absolutely wrong or something wrong with you that you feel the emotion of sadness. You're a person. You're a person. You're a person. You're a human being. And regardless of how strong or tough or spiritual that we display ourselves, we all struggle with this. We all feel this emotion of sadness in our lives. Jesus felt it. Jesus felt it, and it was described like this in John's Gospel, chapter 11, verse 35, which is the shortest verse in all of the Bible. It's simply these two words, that Jesus wept. Jesus wept. In the context of the scene in the story in which Jesus goes to comfort and be with Mary and Martha, whose brother Lazarus had passed away, and Lazarus was a friend of Jesus. And Jesus, looking around at the scene that he was a part of, wept. He displayed outwardly this emotion of sadness. Jesus displaying an emotion like this. But here's what Proverbs 15:13 says in regards to happiness and heartache and sadness and pain, all of these things, that Proverbs 15:13 says, a happy heart makes the face cheerful, but heartache crushes the spirit. A happy heart makes the face cheerful, but heartache crushes the spirit. That it is happiness on the inside of me at days that causes me to greet you with a smile. It's happiness on the inside of me that, yes, that God has placed there in my life that causes me to actually have a cheerful disposition or a cheerful face. But heartache crushes the spirit. Here's what Proverbs 15:13 acknowledges, is that yes, you may have happiness on the inside of you and it affects your disposition, sure, but also we all live in the tension of the reality of this proverb, that there are things, friends, that we experience and we go through that attempts to crush our spirit, to slowly eat away at us and slowly destruct us in such a way that we're having our spirit crush. We literally are having our spirit, our wind, our breath. It is literally as though that the happenings and the circumstances of this world causes the wind to be drained from my sails. You ever have that sensation in your life? And you can't begin to articulate it, but that's what it felt like. That in one season of your life, you were so full and free and vibrant, and everything was just moving, and it was like you didn't even have to try. But then you have those seasons where it's like, man, I can't even begin to try because it feels like the very breath is being drained out of me and choked out of me because of the things that I'm experiencing and I'm going through. And so it's this tension, like this, or this emotion, causing me to know I need some help. I need some help. I need some encouragement. I need something that I can look to or someone I can look towards to be able to journey through this with me. So we have a case study this week in our sermon, just like we did last week when I talked through anger. This week, our case study is based on a character by the name of Jeremiah, whose story we find in the Old Testament. And Jeremiah is unfortunately and notoriously known as the weeping prophet. This is not something that we want to set out in life to be known for or recognized as, but this was what Jeremiah had experienced in his life, and so this nickname had been ascribed to him. And today we're going to see, as we look at his life in a little more detail, why that is the case. But here's where I want to begin. I want to begin at Jeremiah's first interacting with God, as God calls him out, calls him to himself, and commissions him to, this is the life that I have for you and what it is that I want for you to do. So we go to Jeremiah chapter 1. We're going to start in verse 4. I got a lot of Bible today for us, all right, friends? So you got to stay on your toes, be alert. We're going to go through some scripture together today. This is going to be good. Jeremiah chapter 1, beginning in verse 4, says, "The word of the Lord came to me, saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. This is some encouraging stuff, friends, all right? When God first begins to interact with Jeremiah in this way, he's like, here's the thing, before you even thought about you, I knew you. Before you ever started to devise plans or ideas for your life or what it was you wanted to accomplish or what it is you wanted to quote unquote do when you grow up, I knew you. Yes, you. I knew you. Before you were even in your mother's womb, I knew you. Before you were even born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. And I need to encourage someone today in this, is that even when you in your own life are viewing yourself and your life as purposeless, meaningless, and you are not considering God at all, God is still considering you. Come on. God still has a plan and a purpose for your life. When you're not dreaming about God, God is still working in you. Whether you think about you or not, or you think about God calling you or not, God still thinks about you. God had something for you before you even thought about you. And here's how Jeremiah responds. He responds, Alas, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am too young. This is the problem. It's like, let me just go ahead and stop you right there, God. We have one tiny problem with this me go and speak prophet kind of thing. I don't do that, right? I don't speak. I'm not particularly capable in the art of speaking and communicating. So I think maybe you should pick somebody else. Too young. But look at this. Look what the Lord said. But the Lord said to me, do not say I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I've put my words in your mouth. I put my words in your mouth. Here's a beautiful thing. When it comes to the calling of God in your life, God is not looking to call people who are capable of doing what it is that God calls them to do. If he were, it would be very, very few people that he could find to work with on planet Earth. All right. If it was only perfect people that God could do anything with, oh man, he is all out of luck. It's inappropriate to say luck in regards to God. He is all out of options, right? He's all out because this is all that we've got here for him to work with is us. And Jeremiah's like, I can't do this thing. And I think so oftentimes there are those of us who are waiting to only do things that we are capable of doing on our own. But I'm telling you, if that's all you do with your life, you don't need God for that, right? But there's a faith journey that God invites us on to be able to do that which he's called us to do, which is far greater than what I can do in and of myself. And here's what Jeremiah writes about next in this chapter. I'm going to explain why I'm starting here. He says, get yourself ready. Stand up and say to them whatever I command you. Do not be terrified by them, or I will terrify you before them. Today I've made you, yes you, a fortified city, an iron pillar, and a bronze wall to stand against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, its officials, its priests, and the people of the land. Watch this. They will fight against you. They will fight against you. Now, fight against you because what we don't see here is that they had already decided in and of themselves, God, we don't need you. They had been worshiping idols and connecting themselves to lies and false things in the world. They had been treating people unjustly and unfairly, and there was evil and wickedness and violence. And he's like, here's the thing, they will fight against you, but watch this, but will not overcome you, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Now, this is a confidence builder, right? Some of you are perplexed right now. Wait, I thought we were going to talk about sadness. But we're talking about Jeremiah and God promising him, I'm gonna be with you. I'm with you always. I can do anything in you and through you. If you get any kind of trouble, I'm gonna rescue you. What happened, right? What happened along the way that Jeremiah gets the nickname of weeping prophet from this particular point in time? See, I had to start here with the calling before we get into the problem, because this is what sets us up so often to be dominated by the emotion of sadness. Is that we start off and we have this calling and this expectation. This is what it's going to be like. Following after you, God. Well, do whatever you want me to do. Your way is better. I'm all in. Let's go for it. And I have this expectation that this is what it's going to be like. And I had some of those expectations in my life when I, in my own unique way, surrendered to what it was God was calling me to do in terms of ministry. I had my own ideas in mind when I started preaching at age 17 as to what it was going to be like. I had a certain expectation. But how many of you know that what you expect is not always what you experience? Nobody? Okay. A few. What I expect in my life is not always what I experience. I set off expecting to see the calling produce a certain kind of fruitfulness, and then sometimes what I experience is a whole different level of chaos. And so much so that for Jeremiah, this is what he writes in Lamentations chapter 1. This now is what his experience was. After he's preaching and teaching and sharing with all the people of God that we've got to turn away from the idols and the worship of false gods and connecting our lives and our livelihood to all of these lies. We got to turn back to God who wants to restore us. This is the state of his world. Lamentations chapter 1. How deserted lies the city, once so full of people. How like a widow is she, who once was great among the nations. She who was queen among the provinces has now become a slave. Bitterly she weeps at night. Tears are on her cheek. Among all her lovers, there is no one to comfort her. Those were all of the false things that the people of God had tied themselves to. Jeremiah refers to them in that way, is that there's none of those lovers, quote unquote, that are there to comfort her anymore. All her friends have betrayed her. They have become her enemies. After affliction and harsh labor, Judah has gone into exile. She dwells among the nations. She finds no resting place. All who pursue her have overtaken her in the midst of distress. That's not the way Jeremiah exactly envisioned it. When he took off to go and speak and deliver this word that God had put on his mouth, to go and make a difference in the world, to go and change the lives of people, he didn't expect that he was going to be in a place of chaos and ruin, where that not only he found himself in the emotion of sadness, but that all of the people around him were in the midst of distress. So, we are not Jeremiah, but we have all experienced this type of thing. Gap between my expectation and what I hoped for and what I am now experiencing. And what I know is that unless I have a way to process that emotion, what the proverb describes inevitably happens on the inside of me, and it crushes my spirit, crushes me from the inside out. It drains the wind from my sails, and it drains the breath from my body if I don't have a process to be able to process this emotion. So we're gonna journey with this in the way that we did last week. Here's our process for this emotion. For those of you here last week, this is the same flow. The same process of this is that I have to frame it. I have to frame it. It doesn't do me any good to deny it. It doesn't do me any good to ignore it. Framing it is proposing the question, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this emotion of sadness? Why do I feel this state of distress? Why does it feel like my very soul is in despair? Why do I feel this way? Framing it brings it into focus for me to be able to propose that question to myself, which is a question that we regularly just simply do not ask ourselves at times. That we never give ourselves the grace to actually process the emotion of sadness, to be able to step back and say, why do I feel this way? Because for Jeremiah, it was really clear. Look at what he says. He answers this question for himself in his own life in Lamentations chapter 1, verse 16. He says, this is why. This is why I weep and my eyes overflow with tears. No one is near to comfort me. No one to restore my spirit. Right? He's experiencing that crushing sensation of his spirit. He's like, I feel like I've got no one here. My children are destitute because the enemy has prevailed. See, here's what Jeremiah shows to us is that there is a trifecta, a triple threat that comes against us when we're feeling the emotion of sadness. He's like, here's why I feel this way. I feel this way because when I look at the past, it feels like the enemy prevailed. Do you ever look back at your past and in the past season, and when you look at it, feel like, man, I don't know what winning looks like in this life exactly, but that wasn't it. I don't feel like things are going well. I don't feel like things are working out. He's like, when I look at this past scene, all I can really seem to see is that the enemy prevailed. I'm losing. The past has a way of doing that to us. And for so many of us, there have been crisis and trauma and pain and agony over situations that you've experienced in your life. And walking around trying to pretend that they didn't happen and that it didn't hurt and that it didn't evoke an emotion of sadness is not helping us to be able to grow. It's not helping us to become only more emotionally healthy, but it's not helping us be able to experience abundant life with Jesus. It's like the past is so troubling and the present. It's the second part of the triple threat is just sometimes I'm in the middle of something right now that I may not be able to fully see or understand. And he says, I feel like I've got no one. And that's what the emotion of sadness sometimes does to us, is that we feel like we're the only person in the world who feels this way. No, if anybody else was going through this, they would be fine. If anybody else was going through this, they would just, in a Christian world, they'd just pray their way through it. They just sing great worship songs through it. They would just be able to move right along to the next thing, put a smile on their face and never be able, and never worship it, never shed any tears. Right? They would be fine. And he looks at the future and he's like, when it comes to the future, I'm worried about my kids. Worried about the kids all around me. What is it going to be like for them? Why do I feel this way? Sometimes when we propose the question to ourselves, we see, and there's been some stuff that has happened. Has me feeling this emotion right now. There's some stuff that's going on around me right now. Makes me feel this way. And just when I look at the future, it makes me sad for some. And one of the things that I want for us to be sure and notice is that the presence of sadness does not mean the absence of wholeness. Hear me. The presence of sadness in you does not mean the absence of wholeness. The lie of the enemy in your life regarding your emotions is that if you are sad, you are not human. You can't possibly be whole, and you can't possibly be a Jesus follower, or you would not feel this way. But it's not true. The presence of sadness doesn't mean the absence of wholeness. Come on. Some of the people who are most whole are people who understand mourning the best, who understand that I am sad because there's things that have happened and there's grief and there's loss that I've experienced. I bring this to Jesus, which brings me to this next part of this process, dealing with this emotion, is that we funnel it. This is answering the question, where should I direct it? Where should I direct this emotion of sadness in my life? Because the reality is we always direct it someplace. Without realizing it, every emotion that we have, we direct that emotion somewhere. And part of my concern is because we believe the lie that the presence of sadness means that we're not whole, that there is no wholeness for us in our lives, and we couldn't possibly be whole as a Jesus follower. My concern is that we have funneled this emotion in all of the wrong directions. And we live in a world that says to us, both inside the church and outside the church, if you are sad, the goal is for you to get over it as quickly as possible. For you to do whatever it takes to numb yourself. To drink whatever, to smoke whatever, to take whatever, to sleep with whoever, whatever it takes, so that I cannot feel this way because there's something wrong with me that I'm sad. And we live under the weight of constantly trying to numb ourselves and numb away the emotion of sadness instead of being able to funnel it in a way that actually does bring us to a place of emotional health. And here's what Jeremiah does. It's brilliant, all right? It's brilliant what he does in this moment. I'm gonna read several verses here, and I debated on just editing out all of this. It's giving you the high points, the highlights. But I wanna read this because this is what we need. Hear me, this is what I need to do. What Jeremiah models for us here in this moment is what we all need to do when it comes to funneling our emotion. Look at what he does. Lamentations 3. This is like Jeremiah's journal through his emotion of sadness. He says, and to God, I am the man who has seen affliction, distress, pain. I've seen it. My life, all around me, I've seen it. And he says, it's by the rod of the Lord's wrath. God, you did this, you allowed this, because I went to your people and I told them they're going to self-destruct. Worshiping these idols and these false realities is going to bring about destruction and chaos. And you told them that when the adversaries and their opponents come after them, you're gonna let them take them out if they continue down this trail. And guess what? That's what's happened. But God, you did that, you allowed that. It says, he has driven me away and made me walk in darkness rather than light. Indeed, he has turned his hand against me again and again all day long. He has made my skin and my flesh grow old and has broken my bones. He has besieged me and surrounded me with bitterness and hardship. He has made me dwell in darkness like those long dead. He's walled me in so I cannot escape. He has weighed me down with chains. Even when I call out or cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. He has barred my way with blocks of stone. He has made my paths crooked. Like a bear lying in wait, like a lion in hiding, he dragged me from the path and mangled me and left me without help. He drew his bow and made me the target for his arrows. He pierced my heart with arrows from his quiver. I became the laughing stock of all my people, and they mock me in song all day long. He has filled me with bitter herbs and given me gall to drink. He's broken my teeth with gravel, and he's trampled me in the dust. I have been deprived of peace. I have forgotten what prosperity is. So I say my splendor or my glory or my hope or my strength is all gone, and all that I had hoped from the Lord. This is intense. And one of the things that is surprising to many church-going people is that Jeremiah talks to God like that. That Jeremiah steps into the presence of God in this emotion of sadness and says, this is what it feels like you have done to me. It feels like you were the one who, instead of helping me, were the one that made my path all crooked and allowed people to laugh at me and allowed me to be able to be hurt and wounded to the point that I don't have anything left. My splendor is gone, and all that I had hoped from the Lord. He says, I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. I remember them. I remember them. If there are things for you, just like Jeremiah, that you remember, and you remember the affliction, and you feel the affliction, and you feel the emotion of sadness, but you haven't brought it to God, and you haven't said to God the things that you want to say or you need to say. You haven't been honest with yourself. You haven't been honest with God. But I'm telling you, there's an invitation to do that. God is so much bigger and so much better than we ever realized that he invites us to be able to come into his presence and say, hey, here you can be honest. Here you don't have to continue lying to yourself or lying to others or lying to me even. You don't have to put on a facade or put on a show. Go ahead, tell me how you really feel. And Jeremiah is going after it. He lays out all of these things and he's like, man, here's where it brought me to. My soul is downcast within me. Well, my soul, it's under the weight of this pressing. I don't feel like I have anything left. When I think about the grief, when I think about the loss, when I think about the hurt, I don't feel like I have anything left. Verse 21, yet this I call to my mind. This is powerful. Yet this I call to my mind. My emotions were in such a state of sadness, and understandably so. But devil, you do not have my mind. My mind does not belong to you. I have the mind of Jesus on the inside of me. So this I call to mind. Yeah, I feel this way, but I have control of my mind. I'm going to direct my emotion in this way. This I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed. Come on, anybody grateful today that the world is a chaotic place, but I am not consumed? Come on, you can put your hands together in this place and thank God, I am not consumed by it. It's chaotic, but I'm not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Watch this. The presence of sadness does not mean the absence of God's faithfulness. I'm gonna clap for myself because I need this. The presence of my sadness doesn't mean the absence of God's faithfulness. I'm so glad that I journeyed through seasons in which my soul felt like it was in winter, and my soul felt like it was in night, when I felt like I couldn't get a glimmer of light or a glimmer of hope into my soul because of what I was enduring and experiencing, and the disappointment had mounted. But the presence of that sadness didn't mean the absence of God's faithfulness. What Jeremiah calls to his mind is that God promised me that I am with you always. And God doesn't let down on his promises. The world may come and go, and chaos may come, and peace may follow it. But here's the thing. I know the Lord is with me always. He's with me always. He says, oh, great is your faithfulness. And he does something. I need to say this to myself. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. I'll wait for him. When the Lord's my portion, it's enough. It's enough. Skip down to verse 25, Lamentations 3. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him. To the one who seeks him, it's good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. It's good for a man to bear the yoke while he is young. Let him sit in silence, for the Lord has laid it on him. Let him bury his face in the dust. Look at this. There may yet be hope. There may yet be hope. If you're online right now, put it in the chat. There may yet be hope. If you're in a moment with more questions than answers, there may yet be hope. If you're disappointed over your performance in the last season of life, there may yet be hope. If you're struggling to shake yourself free from addiction, there may yet be hope. If you ruin the last relationship, there may yet be hope. If you've got a kid wandering far from God, there may yet be hope. Come on, if you're in a state of grieving and mourning, and rightfully so, there may yet be hope. I have to speak it over my life and over my circumstances. There may yet be hope. There may yet be. There may yet be. There may yet be hope. I know it feels like I'm by myself, but there may yet be hope. It says, let him offer his cheek to the one who would strike him, and let him be filled with disgrace. And turn the other cheek. Let's skip to verse 30, Lamentations 3. Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. Let us lift up our hearts and our hands to God in heaven and say, we have sinned and rebelled, and you have not forgiven. Now skip down to verse 48. Streams of tears flow from my eyes because my people are destroyed. My eyes will flow unceasingly without relief. till the Lord looks down from heaven and sees what I see brings grief to my soul because of all the women in my city, vulnerable, who are under attack. Funnel it. Where should I direct it? Jeremiah processed the emotion of sadness in prayer, the presence of God. And he said everything he needed to say. You need to go back and read not only the chapter, but the book in its entirety. Said everything he was feeling. And he waited in silence and received and let God minister to him. He received the love of God, the hope of God for his life. He let God, he was still long enough to let God pour into him in the midst of his sadness. And he prayed a prayer of examine, which says, God, our hearts are full of sin. We've sinned against you. They had in that scene, and we have in this one. And sometimes, not always, please hear me. Sometimes part of my despair has been because I have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And I was sad because of what I said. I was sad because of what I did. And he shows us, I'm going to say everything I need to say. I'm going to be silent and listen and receive from God. And I am going to confess before God, God, if there's anything in me, Lord, if there's anything in us, if we have failed you in any way, God, here we are. Please forgive us. Make us whole, make us new again. Do that in us and in our lives. Jeremiah, in the midst of all of that, the tears, yet still streaming from his eyes. It's the state that he spent so much time in his life. But here's the last part of this process for us, of processing this emotion. You remember this from last week? Filter it. Filter it. It's a lighting filter. I hold it up in front of the light. It changes how I see. Does it change that the light is still there? It just changes a little bit of how I see it. This is the question of what does the gospel say to it? What does the good news of Jesus say to it? To my emotion of sadness? What does God want to speak to us and speak to that emotion? What does God give us for us to be able to say to it and to our souls when we're in that state? Let's go back to this story where we found Jesus, the beginning of our time together today. Jesus wept. And Jesus wept at the funeral of Lazarus, not just because someone had died that he loved. Jesus wept because sin is a disease, friend. Sin is not just, I told an individual lie. Sin is a disease of lies that plagues the world, that affects all of humanity and all of creation. And Jesus wept because he looks at us and he looks at us as humanity, not just Mary and Martha, the sisters of Lazarus, but he looks at all of humanity as like, man, we created this. God created us in the image of God and looked at us and saw it was good, but yet now this is the state of the world, and Jesus wept over it because he looked at each of us and he looked at the pain and the sickness and the loss and the death that we experience in this life, and he looked at it and he wept. You know what he also reminded us of in that story is that I am resurrection and life. And he spoke to Lazarus. He told him to come out of the grave, and he told other people, loose him and let him go. And he raised Lazarus from the dead to be able to demonstrate to us, friends, that there is nothing that he can't do. And there is none who is too dead for him to bring us back to life. And just when we think that we are crushed ultimately by the chaos and the sinfulness of this world, is that Jesus has come to bring us new life. And that when Jesus rose from the dead, he made it possible for us to all be raised to life with himself. Where is all of this going? What does the gospel say to it? Where is all of this headed? If we're following Jesus, if we're walking by faith and we're living by faith, friends, where is this all headed? Because I need some relief. I need some help. Where is this all going? Here's where it's going. Revelation chapter 21, verse 3. Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. That's where we're headed. Well, if you're following Jesus, that's where we're headed. The cities of this world and our individual lives seen so much chaos and so much ruin. But God is going to put it all back together again. There's new heaven, there's new earth, there's new city, and this new city is God's dwelling place now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. It's better. It's better than just that. Look what he says. Verse 4. He will. He will. He will. He will. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain. Well, watch this. For the old order of things has passed away. The old order of things, the sickness, the dying, the mourning, the things that evoke this emotion of sadness that sometimes is pressing us under to the point that it feels like our spirit is going to break. God is going to wipe every tear from their eyes. Yes, every tear. Every tear. Every tear. He saw every tear. Every tear that you shed in grief. Every tear that you shed in loss. Every tear that as it dropped from your eyes and landed in the soil of the earth, he's going to wipe every tear from your eyes. It's the first thing. It's the first thing he's going to do. It's the first thing he's going to do for you. It's the first thing he's going to do for us. Wipes every tear from your eye. The old order of all the things of this world, they pass away. Hear me. When you come to know Jesus, The old has passed away and the new has come, and you're now a new creation in Christ Jesus. But you still live in a world that operates under the old order. One day, the old order is going to pass away. And the work that God has begun in you of making you new, He finishes it, sees it through. Would you stand with me? I want to pray for us. God, we thank you. We thank you for your presence in this place. God, in this moment right now, Lord, we thank you for your word. God, and we thank you for giving us a presence and a place that we can process every emotion. God, right now I pray for the people listening the sound of my voice right now. God, living under the weight of sadness, believing the lie of the enemy that it's impossible for them to have wholeness, feeling the way that they feel, dealing with what they're dealing with, experiencing all this gap between what they expected and what they're experiencing. Yet we still have hope. Hope again, hope again, hope again. I feel the Holy Spirit breathing that into the atmosphere right now, and for the souls of people listening, hope again. You're free to hope again. I know you're hurting, but you're free to hope again. Come on, I know you're discouraged, but you're free to hope again. I know that you're living with sadness. Come on, but you can hope again. You can hope again. You can even hope in the midst of your sadness. Come on, your circumstance is not the thing that gives the final say in whether or not you can hope. No, it's my love for you. It's my compassion for you. You can hope again. You can hope again. You can say to me whatever it is you need to say to me. I'd rather you do that than walk around holding it all in and not being well on the inside. Come on, I'd rather you tell me how disappointed you are with things that have occurred and how much you feel like I've left you or abandoned you, or that things that I promised aren't actually coming to pass. I'd rather you lean into that and let me know. Come on, then to hold it in and let it eat away at you. Come on, you can funnel it my way. You bring it my way. Well, I've got good news for you. I know it's like this now, but it's not like this forever. We'll make you new. And right now in this moment, if you were listening in, you're like, I know today I need a relationship with Jesus. I could not think of a better time, a better moment than right now for you to trust your life to Jesus. Right now in this moment. If that's you want to come to Jesus, begin a relationship with Jesus, I want to lead you in this conversation right now. Jesus, I know I need you. Call out to him. Jesus, I know I need you. Jesus, I bring my brokenness to you. Jesus, I confess my sinfulness to you. Oh, I turn to you. I thank you for who you are. I thank you that you gave your life for me on the cross. And I believe that you're alive. Right now in this moment, Jesus, I ask you, would you save me, forgive me, make me new? And I receive you. I receive new life and the gift of eternal life. Right now in this moment, Jesus, I give you my life. I give you my life. If that's you right now in this moment, it's to solidify what God is doing in you. When I count to 3, you just lift your hand to Jesus and say, yes, that is me today, beginning relationship with you, Jesus. Right now. 1, 2, 3, that's me. I give you my life, Jesus. Give you my life today. Say yes to you, Lord. Here I am, here I am, here I am. Oh God, we thank you. We thank you. He making us new today. Making us new. Ministering to us. God, we thank you for that.